Hello and welcome to What to Read Today. This week, we are delving into the medical world. And the book for today on what to read is Brainstorm, written by Richard Scolyer with Gary Maddox. Richard Scolyer and Gary Maddox. This is a book about a brilliant, very outstanding medical professional based in Australia, one of the leading scientists and skin cancers doctor, who goes from being, he still is a medical doctor, to being diagnosed himself with brain cancer. And it tells the story of how during a conference, so Richard had gone on a conference to Poland where he was speaking, as you would expect of someone who is internationally recognized for his work. And after the conference in Poland, he goes on a ski trip, like a resort type of thing, which many people do after attending a conference. There's usually some events or some take a look around the country type of thing. And during that trip, he felt unwell and back to his hotel room. It continued. And long story short, he was later on diagnosed with brain cancer. This book, what it does is it leads you through the beginning part, his early childhood, growing up in Tasmania, what his family background looked like, his growth through the educational system, primary school, high school, the medical school, how he came about deciding or choosing his specialty for medicine, which is pathology, and then focusing on skin cancer. Brainstorm is one of those books where there was, for me, a lot of, I see, And that's because it gives you an insight as to what it means for someone to say, this event, this disease, this bad news will not define me. This will not be my end story. And even if it is, I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep trying to see if I can beat this thing until my last breath. Because Richard is the leading scientist and he knows people globally, this book takes you through his journey of assembling medical team. He was a co-leader of a medical institute in Australia. So he had a few people who knew quite a fair bit about skin cancer, and they were able to apply that knowledge to seeing how they could treat or at least provide some sort of diagnosis and treatment for him. What I liked about this book is Richard is quite upfront about how they were able to assemble medical teams. They reached out to colleagues globally to tell them, this is the path, this is what we're thinking for this ailment, on how to treat this. What do you think? Is this something you will approve? And having that reassurance of, okay, you might be in the right path. We haven't tried this before, but based on the knowledge we have so far from this other arm of medicine, which is the skin cancer, some of the findings and results they have, his medical team were able to think maybe we can apply this to the treatment of your disease. He talks a lot about his family, growing up as a child, his childhood, his parents. There was a lot of freedom growing up, his ability to choose anything he wanted. He chose medicine, and how he went to various sporting events. In this book, one thing I came to understand and really appreciate is even after his surgery, he's had multiple surgeries to remove, or at least to treat the brain cancer, the tumor. You would find him going out for a run, most often against his treating doctor or the doctor in charge of him. Even if he's a doctor, he has a doctor looking after him, does not fully support that. After surgery, you're expected to lay down and rest your head a bit and just be, lying down and taking some time off. But Richard was out the next day running. There was one very important part of this book I really didn't think it could be done. So there is, his medical team decided to try an experimental approach, which hasn't ever been done before, in the treatment of his brain cancer. And because it's never been done before, some of the vaccines and medications he needed were not yet approved in Australia. And so they had to write to TGA, Therapeutic Goods Administration, the people in charge of, approving a particular drug to be used in the country. TGA for Australia. And I just thought, wow, if this guy wasn't medically connected, because he's a doctor, he knows a lot about medicine and what can be done and can't be done. If he didn't have a team of highly respected people, highly acclaimed people, will he have access to this information? Will he have access to even just being able to write to the Therapeutic Goods Administration, requesting their permission and approval for a specially made vaccine? So this was specially made for him by a pharmaceutical company to be brought into the country, which was used for his treatment. And thankfully today, he's alive, and it would seem that vaccine drugs worked. So so this can be done. It's something which throws insight, a little bit of light on that word privilege. Many people do not like that word, but in one way or the other, we are all privileged in one way. Take it, accept it. In the case of Brainstorm, Richard is privileged to be a doctor just by his profession. He's also privileged to be a leading, well-recognized expert on skin cancer. And based on that privilege, he knows people. He has international collaboration. He went on to become Australian of the Year in 2024. So you see, for the work which him and his institute and colleagues are doing. So that's purely based on the work he's done in the past and he continues to do. There's nothing to be argued there. But it is sometimes who we are or what we are and who we know tend to make life a little bit easier. I enjoyed reading this book. I will recommend this book for anyone who is interested in the medical field, who wants to be inspired about not giving up, not saying, not taking no for an answer. Even when they say something can't be done, you decide, I'm going to do it anyway, just to try to say, can I get a positive outcome? I won't just accept it because you've told me, oh, I've got brain cancer and that's the end of it. So I will recommend this book if you're hoping to see life from the perspective of not giving up, trying or using all available resources to see if you can beat the odds. Naturally, I like to speak a little bit about a part or something I think could be improved on in the book. There was, in my opinion, too much information on his backstory, childhood, and what he did as a child, and the photo album, and then his love interests. There was this whole thing about who he dated when he was 20, his 30s, and for me, I thought this story would still stand or could have stood without any of those bits, or at least an abridged version of those parts of his life. However, for people who are wanting to study medicine or thinking what might be their specialty, I will recommend this book because Richard does a fine job of talking about different specialties in medicine and how he came about deciding on what specialty to choose or to be involved in. I thought that was really good. Why he decided not to do this branch of medicine, but this other branch. So if that's something you will be keen on, please, I will recommend Brainstorm by Richard Scolyer. Until next time on What to Read Today, stay well and keep reading. Cheers.